You're watching Rurouni K95's anime review on Violence Jack Evil Town. Hi Ruronis, this is your pal Rurouni K95 here, and today's anime review I get to cover another Violence Jack OVA from Go Nagai for today's anime review, which came out in 1988. For today's anime review is Violence Jack Evil Town. Violence Jack Evil Town is a 1988 anime OVA by Go Nagai, and it's based on the Violence Jack manga arc about three groups sealed in an underground mall. Yep. Yeah, because Violence Jack Evil Town is the second OVA as well. Because Violence Jack Evil Town is probably the one written by Sho Aikawa, which we'll get to that in one moment. So let's review Violence Jack Evil Town OVA. Let's begin. It starts off in Japan. The Kanto Hell quake occurs, and people in mall sink underground and are trapped. Later, Kenichi and Kurata have stolen a ham, but Kawamori kills Kenichi, and as Kurata runs to Section B, at Section B, Kurata tries to make nice with the gang members there, and Blue hits on him. Blue busts up Kurata, and Mad Saulus, whatever you want to pronounce him, finishes him by stomping his head in. Meanwhile, Section A has dug up Violence Jack. Section B attacks, but Jack steps on one. Saulus is going to kill AIDS for leaving Toby, but Blue saves him and says to have a free market. Meanwhile, some kids eat cockroaches and rats, and Kawamori shows then Jack, a knife-wielding fighter who is the good guy here, because Violence Jack protects the weak, and he has to defeat the gang members and the bandits as well in Violence Jack Evil Town. They bring Jack to see Taihei Shibaki, where Jack shows his jackknife and says that he is Violence Jack, because he doesn't have a name, but he calls himself Violence Jack. Taihei Shibaki says they sunk in the Hellquake and split into areas. Section A, Section B, and Section C as well. They have a free market swapping meat in the dub as well for Section A and B meat. Then Section C comes out and reveals Section A drugged and raped them. The models broke away and formed Section C, and now they get Jack to join them. At Section C, Alia Mu shows Jack they are peaceful and wear fashion models, so they don't need to eat much. Jack busts a hole in the rock wall with a punch and frees them but then Section B attacks Section A. Tomcat kills the children in a bloody, gory, violent ways, and Alia Mu asks Jack to save them. Jack says it's too late, because Tomcat has killed the children in Violence Jack Evil Town. And Kawamori betrays Section A and slags a bunch of guys from it to join Section B. So Section B goes after Section C, but Jack stands in their way. He takes down some grunts, but Saulus holds him as the dregs get by as well. Yep. Jack nearly crushes Blue's neck as Blue urinates herself, which is awkward as well. But Mad Saulus slugs him out and gets on him. Section B goes to Section C, and Riki holds them off, and somehow later they are sealed away behind a metal door. Mary volunteers to stay behind and keep guard. Jack chucks Saulus through a stone wall and runs through the mall to save the supermodels. He finds Mary raped and killed with some sort of stick, which is basically look like a broomstick. through her vagina, which is basically impaled, which I find it very disturbing as hell as well. Yeah, and a wooden object in her mouth, which is basically a broomstick. You can tell. The surviving models make it to a place where, with the light coming in, but Riki goes off to check a noise. It's Kawamori urinating, and she gets gang shanked by Section B. As for Section B, then attacks and rapes the models for nearly 3 solid minutes. For 3 solid minutes as well. Kawamori tries to rape Alia Miyu, but Blue kills him and attempts to rape Alia Miyu. Jack comes in and decapitates Blue, then chops up the members of Section B. Mad Soulless comes in and is shocked by Blue's severe head. Because, Violence Jack killed Blue by decapitating Blue's head with a jackknife. He says he loves her and eats her, which is basically, after like 20 seconds of cannibalism, Soulless turns into some grotesque abomination. He fights Jack and beats him up, but Jack plows him with his 40 cm jackknife into Soulless' skull, and he says that he's gonna enjoy being with Section B in hell. And then he died. Oh, and the models of Section C are a bit bummed by the outside being a ruined place, and their modeling skills don't have a use in this Fist of the North Star type looking world, because it's post-apocalyptic, kind of like Mad Max, because this is basically takes place in a setting like Mad Max in Violence Jack Evil Town, especially. Emmy and the blonde comfort Alia, and we get a slow pan to the blue sky with peaceful music. Yeah, because the censorship, however, it was censored in Australia and England. The main scenes were removed, where Section B raping the supermodels of Section C, Section A raping the supermodels of Section C, some of the more graphic violence and gore, and the scene where Matsoulis eats his hermaphrodite girlfriend Blue. It should be noted that the manga was even more disturbing and toned down for the anime a bit, because this anime OVA, Violence Jack Evil Town, basically has dealing with what you expect. Yep. So for Violence Jack Evil Town, however, because it's a lot more, particularly the second OVA, which is probably after Violence Jack Harem Bomber, which I've already covered my review on Violence Jack Harem Bomber as well. Violence Jack Evil Town is the only OVA which Bennett the Sage refused to do an anime review for Anime Abandoned, because he refused to do a review on it. Like I said, if Bennett the Sage doesn't review Violence Jack, I will review them, because you can't go wrong with Violence Jack as well, because I love Violence Jack. Riki is the one who breaks through the wall to be outside instead of Jack, using a big hammer and wearing only undies, which is kind of weird in this. Kawamori doesn't go in Section B and jam his thing into Ali Mu, but he does cap the leader of Section A in an effort to make things easier for Section B to rule. Mad Soulless thanks him by crushing him under his foot like a soda pop can, which is kind of very violent and disturbing to see, what you expect seeing in Violence Jack Evil Town. Yeah, because that's obvious, but it's just how it is what it is for Violence Jack Evil Town. Section B symbolically turns into werewolves as a metaphor for giving in to their beast drives. Mad Soulless doesn't actually transform into that abomination to face Jack one last time. He also doesn't take Jack's blade. Jack gives him one as well. So that's basically a lot more different from the original Violence Jack manga. I mean, in the OVA, Violence Jack Evil Town, Section B does not transform into werewolves. However, in the original manga, they were into Section B transforms into werewolves, which it was. it was missing in the later on in the later anime as well. And even the cameos in Violence Jack Evil Town, however, it was kind of a reverse cameo where Blue bears a strong resemblance to Getsa Poco from Keiko Kamen and as well, which is kinda. Aliyah Mew is from God Mazinger, but has lime green hair instead of a blickety black hair color. Riki is from Shuten Doji, but has blue hair instead of blonde. In one scene, around 26 minutes, a chick looking and dressed like Honey Kisaragi with blue hair is seen in section C. Yeah, because I know that's cameos from Cutie Honey, Shuten Doji, and God Mazinger in Violence Jack Harem Bomber, which you expect, and then we get to see later on the characters that resembles Jun Hano and Tetsuya from Great Mazinger later on, which is how the resemblance that later on in my next anime review on Violence Jack Hell's Wind OVA. But for Violence Jack Hell Evil Town OVA, however, Jack is voiced by Kiyoshi Kobayashi, who is known for the voice as Daisuke Jigen in the Lupin the Third series, which is probably the only voice actor from Lupin the Third does the voice as Violence Jack in Violence Jack Evil Town OVA, which any of you fans of Lupin the Third may recognize the voice of Violence Jack, especially in the Japanese dub of Violence Jack Evil Town, especially. And also, the screen written for Violence Jack Evil Town was written by Sho Aikawa, who worked on one episode on Angel Cop. He also worked on Fullmetal Alchemist, Genocyber, Vampire Princess Miyu. Also worked on Urotsukidoji, Legend of the Overfiend, and other works that Sho Aikawa also worked on. Yeah, like I said, Violence Jack Evil Town is that anime which Bennett the Sage does not review because he tried to review it, but he refused it. But if Bennett the Sage doesn't review it, but like I said, if Bennett the Sage doesn't review Violence Jack, I will review Violence Jack just to cover my anime reviews. I mean, this is an outstanding OVA of what Violence Jack Evil Town is, because I know this has deals with graphic violence, murder, rape, gore, necrophilia, and cannibalism, especially what you see in Violence Jack Evil Town. Which, unlike Violence Jack Harem Bomber, however, Violence Jack Evil Town was released in 1988, probably around the same time as Akira and Urusei Yatsura Movie 5, The Final Chapter, because this is your typical anime OVA that came out in 1988, especially. Yeah, because this is probably the second Violence Jack OVA, because the setting, the post-apocalyptic setting in Violence Jack Evil Town is basically like your typical Mad Max-like setting, but for Violence Jack Harem Bomber, however, it was basically like a Fist of the North Star-like background post-apocalyptic setting. But for Violence Jack Evil Town, however, because I know there was some censorship going on, because if it's either uncut and both versions, like the Italian editions as well as Japanese versions, which just have either with English subtitles or no subtitles on there. But it's just how it is what it is for Violence Jack Evil Town, along with the other Violence Jack OVAs like Violence Jack Harem Bomber and Violence Jack Hell's Wind as well. So that's going to be it for my anime review on Violence Jack Evil Town for today's anime review. Thank you for watching, but before we go, here's my thoughts on this anime review. When I first watched this, when I first watched Violence Jack Evil Town OVA, because I know that it was written by Sho Aikawa, who did work on Angel Cop, Genocyber, Fullmetal Alchemist, Urotsukidoji, and other anime, because because Violence Jack Evil Town's the anime that Bennett the Sage refused to review it. Hope you subscribe for content. My anime plan link in the description down below. You can share this video on your Twitter, Facebook if you have a Twitter, Facebook account, and all the social media. Be sure to give this video a thumbs up by clicking on the like button on this video. Feel free to leave in the comments in the comment section. Be sure to subscribe to my channel, RoniK95. Feel free to join my channel, hit the notifications bell button, and keep it otaku for this anime review. And I got another anime review coming up for tomorrow. Stay tuned for my last Violence Jack OVA for tomorrow's anime review. I'll get to cover Violence Jack Hell's Wind. Stay tuned for tomorrow's anime review on Violence Jack Hell's Wind, because you won't want to miss another anime review.